The Paris 2024 Olympics have just ended. And like many people around the globe, perhaps you're feeling a little bit lost, a little bit like you're going to miss the competition, the sweat, the heat, the passion, the entertainment, the vigor. Well, don't worry, because Diesel and Clooney Unpack the World has all of those things. Vigorous wordplay, sweat because we're probably hot, and all sorts of competitive wordsmithing for your enjoyment. So tune in to Diesel and Clooney when you're tired of missing the Olympics, and we'll get you across the finish line of goodness. That's right. I'm going with finish line of goodness.
I wondered where the finish line was going to be.
Yeah, I did too. Honestly, as I was saying,
yes,
I was like,
yes.
where is it gonna? Where will it end? Is this whole episode just me doing an intro? It could be.
I'd say we're better than the Olympics because we don't quit after 3 weeks, right?
Like, don't quit after 3 weeks. We might take 3-week breaks, but we don't quit.
Oh, or more, but yeah,
or more, as the case may be. But we're back now, Jerry. We're back.
We are.
And for those of our listeners / viewers now, because that's how high tech we are, you may notice, dear viewers, that someone else is joining us on the screen. Someone who isn't a stranger to Diesel and Clooney.
You have no clue.
Whatsoever. No clue, listeners, because
you don't know what the viewers view.
No, she's keeping the surprise. Yeah, she's keeping the surprise. She hasn't made a peep yet.
Yeah.
But it is my incredible joy to introduce to you into this Herculean post-Olympic Diesel and Clooney episode, the truly magnificent athlete when it comes to knowledge that is Kristi Steele of our very own sponsors, K360, which I don't even have to do. I don't have to do a commercial now because
I know you're free. Yeah. You're free this entire episode, although they are fantastic.
No, they're a load of. I'm going to throw it in just for my own amusement.
Okay, good.
I'll be interested to see how you make the segue from like the real thing to the commercial, right? And speaking of exactly what we're talking
exactly
about
what we're speaking of.
Yeah,
I know it might actually be a segue that works this time.
Game on.
Which is a big accomplishment for us.
I think today you found your byline: Diesel and Clooney, loyal and committed.
Diesel and Clooney, loyal and committed. Cue up the merch.
All the way across
Cue
the
up the merch.
Yep.
I love across the finish line of goodness. And speaking of the finish line of goodness, that's really what we brought Kristi here for, because Kristi is an expert when it comes to all things college, university, further education, finance, application. It's a bewildering world out there. One might say it's quite the set of hurdles to overcome. But if anyone's going to get you across that finish line of goodness to further education, it is definitely Kristi. So Kristi, thank you for joining us again, because, if I get this episode edited on time, not only will it come out shortly after the Olympics finish, but also the school year is about to spin up. Tell us, Kristi, is that significant? The start of the school year, is that a busy time for those looking into further education?
It is a busy time.
Your thoughts?
For who?
It is a busy time. It's a busy time for educators. It's a busy time for kids. It's a busy time for parents. And it can be a busy time for people that are not involved in education because you have to sit in the traffic around everyone that's come back to take their kids to school.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. So really, we cover everyone here. We cover everyone.
That's right. That's right. So this time of year is busy. If you're a senior, you are starting your college applications, which is super excited. I've already met with a lot of families and working on their apps. And I have a senior this year, so we're doing that every morning. And that's interesting and fun, and I've really enjoyed it. So I'm in the same river that everybody else is in. Wow. Swimming with the fish. Not the scene, because it's toxic, but a different water.
a different one entirely. Well, and Jerry, I mean, you've got college students, so this is near and dear to your heart as well. And it's been a while since I was a college student, but I do meet with quite a few, and I do get to speak at a lot of schools to seniors. In fact, it is school year. School year's coming. I'm heading out. My first stops are in Asia. I'm heading out soon, and I've got presentations, for seniors, because there's a lot of transition. This is their last year of high school, and it's kind of a lot to deal with all at once. You're trying to make the most of one of the most amazing times of your life. I mean, the seniors they're starting the year as top dog. It's everything they've dreamed of. They're finally top of the pile. And I feel like, at least I remember, even though that was a while ago, I do remember just the conflicted feelings of the fact that I feel like I don't even get to enjoy this. Like I finally reached the top, and at the very moment that I've reached the top, I'm getting pressure to think about what's next. And that did, to me, that added a ton of stress. And it can be, oh, it can be bewildering. So we'd love to hear pointers, because I do believe there are ways to make it less stressful. There are ways to plan ahead. And there are ways to even know what are the stressful bits coming to you. So maybe in this episode, we're going to help our seniors enjoy that top dog moment. We're going to help our seniors enjoy the accolades of reaching the pinnacle, by helping de-stress what comes beyond the pinnacle. So what would you say? I mean, starting with that, what do you think are the pitfalls? We already said, it's a stressful time of year, but what are the big things that cause all of that stress in your professional opinion?
I think waiting until your senior year probably
Ooh.
causes the most stress. And
Mm.
I'll make sure that you guys get the link, but I'm happy for families to sign up for a timeline for high school so that no matter what age range your students are at, you can kind of have a timeline to sort of pick apart the process and not be overwhelmed at the end. But the students that wait until the very end, and families
Mhm.
to have those discussions, I find are the most overwhelmed. And if you can pick apart some things, even in your junior year, it
Mm,
just really helps mitigate a lot of tears and takes off the pressure. It is a huge job and decision. And I mean, I even asked my kids, what are you excited about the school year? And the one that is a senior said, making a college decision, it's such a big decision. And, I feel like we do okay not putting pressure on them, but they put pressure on themselves.
Mhm.
And I think society says, you're at this juncture of your life, so make a decision, a permanent one. And it's
yeah.
it's really a challenge, but
Right.
having the ability to sort of segment it out, I think really helps. And if you have some ideas your junior year and you sit down and talk as a family about finances and what that looks like and do a few college visits, then you're not trying to, or virtual college fairs, you're not trying to make those decisions all at once in such a squeezed time. Because if
Mhm.
you do need scholarships, which is one of the things we're talking about today, that time frame suddenly becomes much more crunched.
Mm. Yeah. I'm curious, is there it, as you were talking about that, my mind goes to cultures who put immense pressure on the college decision from kindergarten on, right? And it feels like there's this spectrum and there's this balance. It feels like you have kind of maybe honed in on some of that balance. Is there like what's the middle space look like?
I think the middle space really is just your own self-awareness. And if students can
Mm,
understand where their joy comes from, then that helps them choose fields that they want to get up in the morning and take classes for.
mhm,
I mean, and I have over the years worked with a lot of international students who this was their major, this is what their parents said, this is where they were going.
mhm,
They didn't get in, so they ended up at the school I recruited for. But they were still doing that major. And sure enough, 2 years in, they changed their major. And
yeah,
sometimes it tacked on a whole year. And so I think, really students using their voice. And in a lot of cultures, that's not as feasible as others. But I think the more students choose to do that collectively, the more that's normalized. But being in a major that you dread going to class for every day, every single class,
mhm,
I think
Mm,
that really complicates the entire anxiety challenge altogether because
mhm,
suddenly now it's not just a decision that you have to make and the pressure of the career to support your family like it is in so many cultures. You get a degree to pay for your parents
right.
instead of
mm.
it's suddenly something that you abhor doing and you dread it. And maybe I'm just old fashioned, but I feel like life is really short and we've all been given gifts and skills to use. And so using them in something that brings us joy and maybe even doesn't feel like work.
Mhm,
There's a concept. Perhaps is something that should be considered or combining those two things because that's a lot of things that students and I talk about is that you may be good at something and love something else. So how do you combine those things in a major or minor so that you can do those things together? And I give this example a lot of a student that was really good in science, in biology specifically. I mean, just a whiz, just was able to memorize a lot of facts and diagrams and things like that. But she loved artistry. She was a fantastic illustrator. So she majored in biology, minored in illustration, and she works for a curriculum company illustrating biology textbooks.
Wow.
So she has found a way to combine it.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think that is the ideal, right? When you're able to combine where, your life intersects. And, you don't have to know that as a sophomore or junior or senior, but I think we all kind of know what we enjoy at any point in life. And finding a way to intermingle those things is really important. And even if it can't be in your major, finding a school that will help encourage those things will help you get up in the morning. Because adulting is hard. All three of us can attest to
You
that.
point to us as the poster children for
Yeah,
for hard
definitely.
adulting, right? Yeah.
The model of adulting.
I mean, just look at you. Yeah. Yeah. So what tips do you have? Because in that it's like there's a plan for working through high school, getting into college, but that plan has these major shifts along the way, right? Some of it is you just discover something about yourself that you didn't realize, or maybe you finally find the confidence in, I'm so good at science. Everybody's always told me I'm going to be a scientist, right? And you're just on that path, and then all of a sudden I mean, we're talking about high school here. A lot changes in there, and you discover, hey, I could be an artist. I could really do this. Like, what tips do you have for students and for parents of those students when they've got a plan and the plan changes in the middle, and there could be 1,000 other reasons for that plan to change, right?
And that can happen frequently. And every student that I talk to, I tell them choose a school that has 3 or 4 majors that you feel like you could pivot to.
Yeah.
And for that reason, it allows you a little bit more breathing room, even just psychologically, to know, like, if this doesn't work out, I can do this. It may cost me an extra semester or year, but those pivot points are really easy. Did you guys change your major when you were in college?
I did. Yeah.
I changed my whole. I changed. Yeah, I changed everything really. I was
Yeah.
originally going to go for industrial business administration, and switched to a completely different university before I even started that, and did youth community work and applied theology in a sociology field. So a little different than industrial business administration. So yep. I
Not
feel like
sports
I'm
communication?
not sports communication. Nope. Even though
I've heard you're
most-
good
I'd
at
be
it.
a great Olympic commentator.
Most people switch their majors. I went to school thinking I love kids, I'll be a teacher, and I sat through one class of elementary ed, and I was like, nope, not for me.
Yeah, I was about to ask. I want to hear from you two. What were your changes? Because clearly it's common. We're living proof.
But I strategically chose a place that I knew had several things that I could pivot to, and so that wasn't a panic moment. What about you, Jerry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was I like you, Chris, like what you switched to was like a youth major, and then switched to intercultural studies in the middle. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think now there's such a huge variety of majors. It's such an exciting time to be a student. When I was in school, I graduated in 2000, so that dates me. I'm 46. There was nothing like, an entrepreneurship major or concentration. That's really probably what I should have done.
Yeah.
But there was nothing like that. And students just have so many opportunities, and internships really allow them to kind of understand if that's their lane. And I think that's one of the beauties. And I tell students all the time, when you're looking at a major, talk to a professor in that department and ask them, where are your students interning? Where are they being hired? And, if you're at an internship in the freshman year and it's terrible and you decide you don't like it, great. Now you know what you don't like. So that gives you a narrow field to decide what you do like, because I think we do pivot. And I do think that a lot of us, we get into something and we think this is for me. And then we actually get into it and we realize,
Yeah.
no.
We like the idea, but the reality of the experience shifts. Which I think it's so good. It's so good to point that out, just because it is you're making decisions when you're quite young. If we look at this psychologically and sociologically and other logically,
what do you know when you're
your
17,
prefrontal
18.
cortex is still forming and everything. It's kind
mine's
of
still forming.
Right.
You
That's
babe
just
at
it,
23.
You can see it. Just watch. Now we're on video.
Yeah.
Just watch it. Watch
what
it
you
form.
can
It's going to be
see.
different
It's
by the
even
end of the
See.
discussion.
illuminated. It's illuminated.
Yep.
But it
Much
is,
more so than.
it's so much, pressure I think that we put on ourselves. Because I remember at 18, yeah, I legitimately, and I don't know if it was cultural, maybe I think it probably was, just thought, well, yeah, I have to make a decision now that will basically shape the rest of my life. And one of the things that I have seen, not just in myself, but even in contemporaries, just backs up exactly what you're saying, that it's a dynamic process. I mean, I legitimately could not I couldn't even begun to have imagined at 18 where I thought I was going and where I am now. I mean, it's not a straight line. It's definitely a we're gonna it just I could not have imagined all the pieces that would get me to where I am. I'm thrilled to bits. Um, but there's so much unexpected that's going to happen. So I love the advice of almost go into it knowing that, find
Right.
somewhere that has multiple majors that interest you.
And I really tell students, all of the students that we're talking about, all three of us probably live abroad.
Mm,
There's a high likelihood. So you probably can't work overseas and do some sort of paid internship. But if you can shadow somebody in an industry you think you're interested in, gosh, that's such a rich experience. You don't
Yeah.
have to be paid, you don't have to, it's nothing official, but shadowing someone for a day or two really is much cheaper than a semester in college.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
is
for sure.
there's got to be those opportunities out there and everything. Yeah, I think that's phenomenal advice. And all of that leads to there, you framed it well, the benefit of that it's not a failure if things don't go as planned, that actually that's just research. It's great to figure out what you don't like. I realized I did okay in mathematics type classes in maths, but uh, it was not my passion. So I was actually pretty excited to go, industrial business administration seems a bit mathy. And I went, oh, sociology, way less mathy. Although there's still actually, it sneaks in there. The math sneaks in. But still, that process of elimination, being able to go, oh, yeah, actually, I may not quite know precisely what I like, but I could at least, scratch off some things and go, no, 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 I do not want to focus on this. And so it's all research. It's not necessarily, failures. It really is a narrowing thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's a good framework to look at it, a good
And if
mindset.
you have a student that really is struggling and just doesn't know, I have a self-paced course that really gives you a framework to reflect, what
Mm.
type of school would be a good fit for me. There's a mini career assessment in there and even a character assessment, which may seem contra to anything related to school choosing, to picking a school, but really understanding the character and values that you hold of yourself not only gives you great words to use in a college essay, but it also helps you
Mm,
understand kind of why that aligns with who you are in a career.
Mhm, mhm.
If justice is a big part of your character, then that's different than, perhaps, um, you know, mechanical engineering.
right.
And, so I think that's part of it too. And then understanding realistically, kind of going back to what you're saying, Jerry, are my grades such that this expectation of myself or my family align with
Right.
the requirements that will allow me to realistically get into a school. I love reach schools. I think that every student should have a reach school, but I think aligning your expectations and understanding that we can't do it all and we're not all going to get
Mm,
into it,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm.
And sometimes that's a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Um, yeah, I think and this is what I appreciate about what you do is just recognizing that this is not just a decision, this is a journey, right? Like, and so it's multiple decisions over a long course of time before you before you make the jump to begin university, whatever that looks like, and after and ongoing, right? Like there's this, and we talk about this a lot, Chris, is like, it's a transition, right? Like you're transitioning
yeah.
from all you've known in your life and your entire experience, which has included this type of education and living at home and just kind of everything that you know into this new space. And there's this drop off day, which people are doing it right now. I'm getting pictures from friends who are dropping their kids off at college right now. But that day is just kind of the point in the middle, and there are more decisions to be made. Say more about your course. Like
That's one of
what's that
them,
look
the
like?
college project. So there's a junior and senior version. The junior helps students really reflect and think through, what size is good for me? What components am I looking for? What types
Mhm.
of, community is best for me? What class size? Some students have been in a very customized, very attention serving classroom environment, and then to go to a classroom of 300 where a TA is teaching and they never meet the professor.
Right.
Will you sink or swim? And thinking through that. And so the junior project helps really think through that, and then basically build several school profiles for you to prepare to apply to. And then your senior one gives an applicate, you take that and you build on it, and you have an application strategy that you come out with, and added a few things, working on your essay. And then one of my favorite things for TCKs that's in there is your elevator pitch. And you really
Mm.
hone down and you work on your elevator pitch to be able, I mean, initially for admissions personnel, to just be able to kind of tell your story in a pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
really, that's something that's so hard for TCKs,
Mm-hmm.
depending
Yeah.
on the questions that were asked and how it's asked. But being able to articulate that well is probably one of my favorite pieces, because it is something that really, no matter where you grow up, you really need to be able to do. But as a TCK, there's so much more packed into that,
Right.
Yeah.
that to put it in a pocket size is much more challenging for
Mm.
us. And the ability
Yeah.
to be able to articulate that and work on that far beyond the point where you're going to meet a lot of people that are going to ask that dreaded question, where are you from,
Mm-hmm.
is so critical. And I wish that, I had had the opportunity to really hone that in and think it through before, because I would have handled that question so much better.
Mm.
Yeah.
What would give us a little glimpse into that? Like what was it? How would you change it?
I think I would have gone from floundering or not wanting to answer it, or in some cases just being angry about having to answer it,
Mm.
or, answering what was easy versus what was authentic, to,
Mm.
my parents were teachers in Latin America and I really enjoyed growing up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, and I think
Really? What?
there's a lot to even the language that we use. I mean, I know um I've definitely seen students have the experience where um, someone kind of had to coach them through how to translate in language that would work for a college, because some of the times they would answer, some TCKs, I mean, it is most TCKs, where are you from is hard. And so fitting your life experience into college essays and things like that, there's a rich bunch of things to draw from, but the
Yeah.
language you use is really important. And I know even simple things. One of the ones that I've heard quite a bit is where students will talk about their travels and the multiple cultures that they have experienced, because, why not? I mean, what phenomenal life experience. I think it's a great thing. But linguistically, whereas maybe to fellow TCKs, there's enough shorthand that you could just say, "Oh, I lived in blah 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 and 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 visited blah 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 and blah 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 and blah blah blah." And in a fellow TCK context, we'd hear that and go, "What a fantastic, rich bunch of experiences! You've clearly dealt with a lot of transition. I know what comes with that." Blah blah blah. But I've definitely heard from people who've said that actually that's just listing it like that or not putting it into the right language actually didn't make it come across as, look at me, I'm adaptable with a ton of experience, um, and a ton of cross-cultural understanding. What it came across as is, I'm incredibly unstable. I'm just all over the place, and I'm just all over the place. And that obviously wasn't the intent, but it is. It's the power of translation, and that's where I think, this, what you do, and even talking about this is so important. Is because it
Mm.
is. It's translating things for a whole different audience, for a whole different language. Speaking
Yeah.
with fellow TCKs, we can shorthand a bunch of stuff. But if you're a TCK writing your college essay, and even interviewing colleges, if you're asking questions to colleges, universities, it's helpful to realize the language and framework is going to be different, that they might not understand the questions you're asking because they don't know a TCK context, or they might not read your college essay the way you intend them to because that's not their background. What you are trying to express as an incredible skill with adaptability and multiple worldviews and intercultural agility, they might read as, ooh, terribly unstable. And so, these conversations and picking up this language and this framework and finding people who can do that translating and have experience, I think is so wise. And yeah, now's the time to do it. Yesterday would have been the time to do it.
I mean, you still have time now. We're at the beginning of the school year, but
It's
I mean, the
true. It's
beauty
true.
Jump
about
in with the rescue. Yeah, yeah. Chris is like,
Yeah.
yesterday.
It's like
If you're listening
yesterday,
to this,
you know,
it's too late.
I'm mostly saying that
But
because who knows how long it'll take
the
me to
expert
edit this
says, no,
episode.
no.
That's the real
I'm a
problem
glass
is,
half
no,
full,
I'm going to get
so
this out. I'm going to get this out quick. This
I'm
is going to be,
hopeful.
I'm going
There's
to get
still
it out quick.
time. There's still time. But the beauty of, to me, the college essay is the same no matter where you've grown up. You just have a plot twist as a TCK that makes it so much more interesting. But the
Yeah.
beauty of, a successful essay is the same no matter where you grow up. And that's telling a story, how it impacted you. And this is the part that the students usually miss, is either how they felt about it or how it changed them. And then
That's
if they
good
want to go a step
storytelling.
farther, what they're going to do about it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And so even, if you translate that like to what I just said, my parents were teachers. I grew up in Latin America. I really enjoyed living there. So I told you the details. I told you how I felt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's super memorable compared to, I had this huge thing in my life. It was a challenge. I overcame it. Woo! I mean, I read thousands of those essays.
Yeah.
And great on you, woohoo.
Yeah.
But, the ones that I remember, and I can tell you, off the cuff, essays that I remember were stories that did and had those components that told you about something, how they felt about it, or how it changed them, and then what they did about it. And that's really, whether you grow up in Zambia or whether you grow up in, Leander, Texas, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well,
well, it is the college essay. I mean, it's a big part of it, but there's a lot. There's a fair amount of bureaucracy.
No, it's just the essay. That's
just the essay. Oh,
yeah.
See, things have changed. Things have changed. Oh,
I wish.
man.
And
Usually,
just chat GPT. Just, hey, chat, write me an essay. Is
Jerry,
that how it works, Kristi?
quotes from an educator. Quotes
That's
from
not
an
a thing.
educator.
That's not a
No,
thing.
I use Jeff Neal's quote all the time that Chat GPT is a great companion to what we do.
Buddy.
It is
Yeah.
not, it is a buddy. It is not your complete resource tool, but it is a great buddy. And I use it.
It's clear if Chat GPT is your complete resource. And that's yeah.
That's true. At this point, I think people can pick up on it reasonably well.
Mm-hmm.
But in all that additional bureaucracy, because again, it's been a while for me. But even looking at the students that I know, and even as I'm at schools talking to seniors, and of course again Jerry's got one now and is dealing with this face to face. There's so much more. Especially if you're a TCK, you've got the international aspect. There's a bunch of extra logistics. But even before dealing with all, there's just a lot at once. But there is the especially in the US, the college system is a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of finance. There's a lot of it can be very overwhelming. And uniquely, not that college isn't expensive in other places, but if you are considering the US, I went to school in the UK, and so the prices were in slightly different categories, but I initially was accepted to and was planning on originally attending for industrial business administration. Remember, at college in the U.S., and so I remember all the paperwork and all the finances and the scholarships, and that there's so much there. And can you talk a little bit about that, because I'm trying to knock off the points that are stumbling, super stressful points, and yeah, essay is one of them. When do you even start planning? How do you pick? What are the things to look for? Definitely one of them. But finance has got to be, especially for the parents who are listening, finance has got to be another issue. So
I think that's really the main
wave
issue.
some magic there. Wave some magic.
For students, it's what am I going to do with my life? And for parents, it's how on earth
Yeah.
are we going to pay for it? And students worry about that too, but not to the same gravity that parents do. And I think um, in the last, so we're in, the end of the year, but I think for the majority of this year, especially in the fall and in the spring of last year, I did so many financial aid presentations.
Mm.
And probably about halfway through that season, I realized two things. One, it was a lot of content to cover in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to leave room for question and answer, which you have to do. But the second thing was you really could not cover the full breadth and spectrum of especially the US system and how you fit into it without something longer. And so how do you do that without becoming a time burden to families that, really already feel like you're drinking out of a fire hydrant when it
Yeah.
comes to the college process? And so with that in mind, I created the Scholarship Secrets course that really covers three main things. One is the US and financial aid system within the US, and it just covers how you fit into that context. And then secondly, secrets to finding scholarships, like the
Mm.
actual secrets, and we'll talk about one of them today. And then the third thing is a system, creating, having a strategy and a strategy, not a system, having a strategy for actually applying for those
Mm.
scholarships. And so there's definitely money out there. And really just kind of busting some myths about it, like, well, I can't apply for those. I don't have time. You have to, it's going to cost me 150,000 hours to do those things. And, financial aid is really complex in the US,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you are an expat family.
Mm-hmm.
And, this past year, the FAFSA was delayed. They've announced this week it's going to be delayed again, but probably not as late. And they're piloting some schools on the October 1 deadline again. So you could be applying to a school that will be one of those pilots. They haven't announced who those are yet, but it's really complex. And I think one of the things that I've found in the almost decade that I've been doing college search and admissions is this is the one piece that it's not just how I'm going to pay for it, but how do I navigate what seems like a Cat 5 river? I just
Mm.
get swept up in it and I don't understand it. And it's big words and it's terms and I don't get it. And so what I've done is explain financial aid and how that works, what the three tiers of it are, how you fit into it. Do you fit into it? Because I have families that say like, well, our adjusted gross income will kick us out of any aid, so therefore we won't ever get any scholarships. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Mm.
Unless you're looking at an Ivy League school, universities will grant students based on merit and talent.
Mm.
But some schools require that you submit a FAFSA or the CSS profile, both of which are just forms that indicate what your income level is.
Right.
Those are just verification forms that help them understand what your income level is. And they don't have bearing on those talent or merit, right?
Yeah.
Because your student didn't arrive at that point based on money as much as they did on their own merit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so don't, linchpin your student by not completing those forms when they could actually be eligible for some of that aid. And, discounts, I heard Jeff Levy a few weeks ago, he's a master in higher ed, talk about how discounts are like Kohl's Cash in higher ed, where, they just discount a percentage like it's, or like a car, it's a sticker
Mm-hmm.
price. And then there's this discount that's levied on every student according to all of these factors. And so when you've got a family that approaches college and finances, they've got to figure out what are those factors for me. And they're even
Mm.
more complex when you include foreign tax income, foreign, all those things that we have to think about. We have two
Right.
houses in two countries. Oops, what does that mean?
Mm.
So
Well,
that's the
and
genesis of
so
it.
which is it's so good. It makes me I feel more calm just knowing that, people have done the work to outlay
Yeah,
all of
it's
this.
overwhelming. It is overwhelming. Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, I mean, it's just such a shame because students should be able to apply for a few scholarships and help offset their cost. And that's really kind of what the concept is. Like a lot of students will receive between a 30 to probably 45% discount.
Wow.
Well, so then, if you consider that, or a lot of students, especially if they're expats, they're in such great schools that, they're transferring in AP credit, or if you're in a British system, A-level credit or dual enrollment credit, well, that already helps your bottom line. And then, if you've got an IB level certificate, usually your grades are going to be really good, hopefully. And, you get some scholarship, or you can apply for, a lot of schools have tuition-free scholarships like the President's Award, or, all these things. Well, if you're only talking about 10 or 15 or $20,000, I mean, if you applied for 2 or 3 $5,000 scholarships,
right,
that's a game changer, and I think students don't understand that 30 minutes of their time could issue $2,000 to $3,000. I will never make $2,000 to $3,000 in 30 minutes.
yeah,
I won't. And
don't cut
so,
yourself short. I think you might. Yeah.
We have faith in you, Kristi. We have faith in you. We haven't told
So-
her
I
how
mean,
much we're paying. Yeah, we haven't
after
told her
our
how much we're
listeners
paying for
listen to
this
this
episode.
podcast and click on your course, I think, yeah,
Be wise to do
you'd be
so.
rolling in it. Yeah.
I would hope so, but we won't hold our breath. But the return on that time, you're at a time where you can get a return on your investment in
Yeah,
a
that's so
phenomenal
good.
way. And I think a lot of students think, well, if I'm not going to get the $25,000 scholarship or the free ride that covers everything, then it's
Right.
not worth it. And I'm like, I mean, $5,000 is a lot of money. That's
Right.
for a
Yeah.
lot of schools, that's half your room and board.
Yeah.
Oh my word. I mean, that
Yeah.
immediately decreases. And even if, you only take out, I'm a proponent of taking out like a $5,000 to $8,000 loan. If that's the school that you need to be at, they have the right TCK care for you. They have the right, span of majors for you. And it's the difference between you going or not going. Because that can be made up in different ways. A lot of schools have upperclassmen scholarships. A lot of TCKs end up being resident assistants, which totally offsets their cost, and they get free living a lot of times, and they get to stay there over the summer because they're an RA. That's not for everyone, but there's just a mix, I think, for a lot of students. And so the course really covers a lot of that. And then it has some incredible bonuses. Some of them are basic, like, terms and definitions of financial aid, which is such a quagmire, to be honest. You were talking about Herculean words, and I thought,
Herculean wordsmithing. Yeah.
We will talk
knew?
about Herculean wordsmithing called the terms of financial aid. But some other things too are, understanding appeal letters. And there's an entire section that's a bonus on appeal letters. And one of those, there's actually 2 of them that are appeal letters for in-state residency or consideration if your family has been abroad. Because that's a huge problem for a lot of expat families. They've paid state taxes, they've paid federal taxes.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But they don't get the benefit from it. And so, really that's a school by school decision. It's not a broad brushstroke that gets to fix that. But just the whole process of understanding how to do that is really complex. And so I've tried to include really practical helps that will help students get across the line. A scholarship planner where they can fill it in and put in their deadlines, and even a ChatGPT prompt that will take those deadlines and put them in a CSV file to throw up on their Google Calendar so they don't have to type it all in.
Genius.
Just
So clever.
realistic things that will help them cross the line. Because to me, it's not enough to know what you need to do, but you've got to have a strategy for how to do it.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds so practical and
Yeah.
yeah, which is it. I mean, there are so many courses out there in general, right? Like not just about this topic, but there's so many. Like we're overwhelmed, and there's a flood of online courses about everything. But what you're doing here really feels like it's just packed full of actual helpful, practical stuff that I mean, I love the finish line metaphor that helps across the finish line of
Exactly.
quagmire goodness. Yeah.
Quagmire goodness. Herculean wordsmithing through the quagmire of academic terms in order to get you across the finish line of goodness. All part of what KC 360 provides. See, I got a commercial.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Oh, but it is such a good one. And there is. It's I think the reason that we're excited to have you on is that college and university admission is confusing for everybody. It's a big decision for everybody. I don't think we all look at it as much of a journey as we should. But for TCKs, for people living abroad, for people in the international context, there really are a bunch of extra steps. And it's good to know that, there is guidance, there is wisdom, that, you have a decade of research specifically with our people to help in this endeavor, because it's an endeavor to begin with. It's an extra endeavor as, as a TCK. Which obviously we'll make sure and, leave all the ways to get in touch with you. But is there any sort of a last nugget of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with, and viewers, because we have those now too?
Yeah, viewers. Well, I promised a secret. So one of the secrets to finding great scholarships is specificity. And so if you can find some specific things, either character traits or perhaps a major or perhaps something interesting about you. I worked with a student once who had childhood leukemia. Well, that's very specific.
Stands out for sure.
And, just things that are specific to you. And that's one thing that I love about the whole college search and admission process, is that it really cannot compare, student to student, because we're all different, and money is very much the same. I really get nervous when families start comparing their packages, because you don't know, like what childhood leukemia scholarships they got, or you don't know what money grandma is giving.
Right.
Well, that affects their FAFSA. That affects their affordability. And so you don't know if they have an asset in the States. If they have a house, that affects their affordability. So, having those specific things to help you find those scholarships are really important. And there's a whole process that we walk through in the course about how to do that. And it's self-paced. It can take you can do it in a day. You can take 3 months to do it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I set it up that way, because when I recruited, I found that students needed 2 things. They needed access and education. They didn't have access to universities or admissions reps in a lot of ways, like maybe the big Ivy League schools were recruiting, but they didn't know about anything else that they could afford or look at or that would actually admit them. So I created the virtual college fair for that. And then the other piece is education. And this is one of them. How do you really educate in a way that isn't overwhelming and that allows you to sort of knock out those things a little bit at a time? And so with that specificity, really thinking through, word searches, and there's a whole process to that of how you develop your own words to be able to search appropriately for scholarships, because that's a big deal. It's not just, which ones are for me, which ones am I eligible for, but, finding ones that are actually a good fit for you.
Wow, genius.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Jerry, as someone who's been through relatively recently, this process.
It's a journey. I'm still on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still going. Yeah, exactly.
And in year 2, she needs to go back and say to her, professors, like, what are the upperclassmen scholarships? Go back to the financial aid office. What am I missing? I mean, those are conversations.
I'm writing that down.
I was say he's taking notes. He's taking notes.
Every year, 2, 3, and 4 students should be doing, like, just go to financial aid. Is there anything I'm missing? Oh, well, you've been in, for a lot of TCKs, you've been in this state for a year, so now you qualify for X state scholarship.
Okay.
But they don't advertise that. They don't contact you and go, you can save now.
Yeah.
I mean, why would
you
they
don't
do
know
that?
what you don't know?
Yeah. So, questions are always good. And like anything in life, advocating for yourself is always going to be more successful than waiting for someone to advocate for you.
Yeah, that's my takeaway for today. I think that's and all the others, but that's my big one. I think that it's because honestly, I think about wading through all of those forms. I'm going to be the last person to advocate for myself. And I understand if I feel like that, how much does my daughter feel like that? And she's just overwhelmed by the mess. I'm not kidding. I mean, when the DocuSign documents come in, I don't even look at them. I look for the little yellow box that says sign here and I click through it. I don't care what, I'm just trusting that somebody on that side of it is not going to completely take advantage of me, as they all take complete advantage of me. That's the purpose of that contract.
But also, child, you need to sign your FERPA and make sure I can access all your documents. Thank you.
Perfect. Yes. But it's absolutely overwhelming, but that like really becoming an advocate for yourself. And I think we're speaking to parents and students as well.
And
Yeah.
an adulting tip, as we close for parents, your child will not learn to advocate for themselves if you are constantly advocating and doing it for them.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Yep.
We need a healthy amount of adversity to survive. And
Yeah,
I mean, this in all honesty, this decision and this journey, it's one of the first big ones. But I think as three of us who at least play adults on TV now, um, those sort of journeys and big decisions, they just keep coming. I mean, everything from job switches to location changes to relationships, and so it
Yep.
is. This is not. I think it's one of the things I'm taking away. I love the journey metaphor, that it's not just signed, sealed, and done. Great, made the decision, everything's great now. But it's a journey, and learning to process this journey well actually is setting you up to do it again in the future, because there will be more. This is not the only thing that's going
And
to
you can go
involve
to
a ton of
college,
paperwork.
Without a major. You can go
Sure.
in
Yeah.
undecided and go to the majors fair. Almost every school has a majors fair. Go to it. Ask questions.
Right.
Go to financial aid in year 2 if you're not sure. Advisors should be great advocates. You don't need your mom to hold your hand in that, my dear. But a lot of people that I work with, they're involved in nonprofit work, and they've all read the book When Helping Hurts. And I think it's really difficult as parents for us not to look internally and go, is my helping hurting?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's a big question that we all need to be asking. Is my helping hurting? And I sat down with my son this year and I said, listen, this is my job. And what I've learned in this job is that me helping you only works if you ask me. If you miss scholarship deadlines, and if we miss things, that's on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I haven't asked, I haven't nagged, and I know the financial implications. I mean, I understand that, parents, but if your student is not able to fill out a college application on their own, they are not able to go to college.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I just had a brilliant idea.
Do tell.
No, I think as a part of your course, you could have this one section where you just make all those parent speeches. And then with AI,
I do. It's on a podcast every week.
well, with AI, we transpose our faces onto your face, and then it just sounds because I gotta, like, as parents, our gut kicks in, right? And we're just like, no, okay, yeah, I'll help. Like you want to jump in there. And we don't know which speeches we're supposed to give from the beginning, because we haven't been doing this for all these years, right? So
Well,
I
you're
just
always
think,
welcome to call me, Jerry, and ask me, do I throw the
nope,
life preserver or do I let her find it on her own?
no, I'm gonna call you and say, hey, I need to talk to my daughter. My son's
I do that a lot.
starting high school right now, so
I have a lot of conversations with parents, and then we set up a meeting with students, and then we have a meeting with students, and I say the
See?
exact same thing.
There we
I mean,
go.
my
So
kids
there you
don't
go.
listen to me. I mean,
Sometimes you
probably
need outside
would.
voice. You heard
Yeah.
it here, listeners. Kristi is available. You
yeah.
hire Kristi. She'll
I'm
talk to your
happy to
students
be the
for you.
heavy. I'm the heavy a lot of times, and it
Yes.
doesn't
There's
hurt my
your-
feelings.
Bring in the muscle, the Herculean muscle,
Yes.
to help
The
your student
Herculean
get
muscle.
across that finish line of goodness.
You should charge $2,000 per 30 minutes and there you go. Right?
There you
I would
go.
never
That's
have
it.
anyone.
Oh, I bet you'd be surprised. Let me talk to your kids for 30 minutes and tell them all the things you should be telling them. $2,000. I bet there would be a line out your door.
I mean, that's the thing. It's definitely worth $2,000 for half an hour, but very
It's gonna save
generously,
them a whole lot of money
you
in
don't
the end.
charge
Yeah.
near that. You're very generous with your expertise, and on behalf of our people, we're very, very grateful.
Well, in an age of unreasonableness, I feel like I have to offer some.
Oh, thank goodness.
There's a t-shirt right there. In an age of unreasonableness, reasonableness, I feel like I have to offer some. Yeah.
I mean, that deserves the movie voice. In an age of unreasonableness, I feel like I have to offer some. Yep, there we go. That's where we've got to.
And your commercial should have finished with, and you can find it at KC360.
Oh, there we go. I'll do it again. In an age of unreasonableness, someone feels like they have to. To find that reasonableness, visit KC360.com. Kristi will be your Herculean muscle on the journey that is college applications. There we go.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Just splice that and use it every time. I mean,
There we
don't,
go.
You can't.
Yep. It's gold.
Great.
That was
It's
gold medal moment. You can't go any higher, Simone.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
I do. Way to tie the Olympics back in. I'm so proud of us. That was, man, those were segues that we didn't even have to call segues. They just happened.
So
They just
true.
happened. I didn't even
Yep.
have to call them out. Didn't have to call them out. Oh, Kristi,
Good
it is
stuff.
it's always a delight having you. Thank you so much for being willing to come and share a secret or two, some insight, and making this a very important journey way less stressful. We deeply appreciate it.
Yes.
Well, the
Thank you,
people
Kristi.
matter, and I think I'm at a point in life where I feel like resources are more important, people over profit. And resources are more important to help families get across the line than expecting them to do it on their own. And that goes for families that are domestic as well.
Yeah.
We're all struggling. And anytime we can offer an oar to help you cross the river, I'm in.
That's good stuff.
Well, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for coming and flinging oars.
Thanks for you both.
Oh, we love it. And dear listener, dear viewer, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back again soon with more insights, more wordsmithing. And, we've moved on from the Olympics. Who knows what'll be ending for our next episode, but we'll throw that in too. We're very current affairs kind of people here at Diesel included.